Good afternoon, Bills Mafia. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I am joined by sports reporter Greg Vorse. Thank you so much, Greg, for joining me. I'm so happy and excited to have you on the show today. Thank you.
No problem. Welcome everybody to the Vorse Lounge. You've seen it on Twitter. Here you are now live in your living room in my basement.
Yeah, I got the a little bit more work to do on this wall. I got a lot of memorabilia that's stored in some boxes that I got to hang up still, but it's a work in progress, right? We're adjusting to these weird times, and you got to set up the backdrop properly with Bills gear.
There you go. Mine's not necessarily Bill's gear, but I do have the Josh's jacks, if you can see them up there.
So I did see that. I see also the UFC 210 lanyard kind of behind your shoulder there. That's pretty awesome. And we'll get to some UFC discussions too.
That was one of the more fun events I've covered, and I've been blessed to cover some pretty crazy things. But like you said, we'll hit on that in a bit.
Yeah. So I mentioned before when we weren't hitting the record button yet. You have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, right?
I do.
So you don't know what an 8 hours rest really is, and
not in the last 5 years.
Not in the last 5 years, and I know that I didn't have an 8 hours rest last night after that amazing 17-3 victory by the Buffalo Bills. We're on to the AFC Championship, Greg. We are 2 wins away from winning our first Super Bowl in Buffalo Bills franchise history. How are you feeling after last night's game, and what impressed you the most about last night's game?
I think what impressed me the most is that this team is finding more ways to win. For the first 12, 13 weeks, it was Josh Allen, let's get on your back, use that cannon of an arm you have, find Stephon Diggs, find John Brown when he was healthy, find Cole Beasley, use your legs, do that kind of things. Last night, it was the flip side. Allen didn't have his best game. You mentioned 17-3 being the final. The offense only scored 10 points, 7 of those coming from that 100-plus yard Taron Johnson touchdown return. And it was the defense. Leslie Frazier on Sunday today interviewing with the Texans. And I just joked on Twitter that his interview should just be play on last night's highlights and go, all right, where's my contract? That's what was most impressive, is that they were able to go out and shut down one of the most electrifying players in Lamar Jackson, and an offense that was humming, granted against some inferior teams, the teams that the Ravens have played the last few weeks, but they were clicking. And the Bills went out there, and minus Justin Tucker, a couple missed field goals, which we don't expect, they held them to 3 points. That's less than the Ravens were averaging in any quarter this past season. So to do that with the defense, with a defense that was kind of much maligned at parts of the season, is impressive. And if you want to talk about who's clicking right now, it's the Buffalo Bills.
100%. And how you analyze these games, you dream them up, you think them up, you anticipate these games, especially playoff games. And I did not draw it up going down like this. I did not think it was going to be a 17-3 win by the Buffalo Bills with their defense showing up. It looked like the 2019 version of the Buffalo Bills defense last night. And as you mentioned, Leslie Frazier interviewing with the Houston Texans, look no further than that performance. I mean, that was a beautiful master game plan by the Buffalo Bills defensive coordinator, pretty much neutralizing this Ravens run game. Lamar had his runs or two, his scampers or two, as he always does. But what did you think of the second half adjustments? Because the first half was a little bit of a lackadaisical slow start, and then the second half, the Bills offense did come out swinging.
I will stick with defense real quick. I love what Frazier did. I was just looking at NFL Next Gen Stats, which is one of my favorite places to go with information. And when they brought 6+ rushers, that being the Bills, they got pressure on Lamar Jackson over 55% of the times that they did that. So obviously, and most of that came later in the game after that first drive. That first drive was kind of wonky. They started out in a base 4-3, then they went into like a muddled 4-4, and it was kind of like, what are you doing? And it was that bend but don't break that they often do, where they marched right down the field, held them to a field goal, and you're like, okay, actually a field goal is a win right here. But the adjustments coming out at halftime, sending Levi Wallace, sending the blitzes, and a guy that did something that we haven't come to expect. Trent Murphy has been inactive several weeks in a row heading into this game. And that one play where he sets the edge, he breaks down and controls Lamar and stops him to a 4-yard loss. That play kind of encapsulates everything. A guy we don't expect making a play we don't expect in a situation we don't expect. And it all came together. Flipping over to the offensive side of the ball, no, it wasn't the best performance the Bills has had. We said that. It wasn't Josh Allen being who I think is going to be runner-up to Aaron Rodgers in the MVP race. But they did enough to be up 10-0 to score those 10 points. And when you really break it down and look at it, they left a lot of points on the board there, Ryan. You had what should have been a touchdown to Gabriel Davis early, right off his hands. He's usually pretty sure-handed. There's 4 points right there. The wind looked like it was definitely an issue. I don't know if you've ever been down on the field of Bills Stadium, but it could be the calmest July day where it's sunny and there's nothing. And if you're on the field, you're like, there's actually a breeze down here just because the construction, the tunnel. I think Al Michaels mentioned that the reports where it's only 8-mile-an-hour winds, but the flags were stiff starched out. The goalposts are moving. Justin Tucker misses a pair of field goals. The wind was a factor. So you missed that touchdown pass that should have been to Diggs. Now you're at 11 points left on the board. So when you really start to look at it, the Bills could have put up way more than they did. The offense just missed some opportunities. And the offense, the one thing that I didn't like, if we're going to nitpick, was all year we've talked about how much Josh Allen has spread the wealth. Whether it's Diggs, whether it's a healthy Brown, whether it's Beasley, whether it's Knox. He's throwing it to a bunch of different guys, McKenzie, Gabe Davis. Last night, it was even in double teams, throw the ball to Diggs, throw the ball to Brown. It seemed like he may have forgotten some of his guys. Now, that could be the Ravens defense also. They're fantastic. Right. They were doing a lot of double teams, a lot of bracketing on Beasley and saying, we're not going to give you these little chunk plays down the field that you like to do, Josh Allen. Figure something else out. And they won. So they figured something else out.
Yeah, that's a great point because the Bills' offense didn't look like they usually do. It looked like Josh Allen was figuring things out as the game went along. And for this team to – I think this was really the first performance in quite a few weeks, I should say, where the defense somewhat bailed out the offense. It was like the offense has been bailing out the defense pretty much all year. And for them to do it against – I thought going into this game, their toughest opponent all season long in the Ravens – they're a very dynamic team. I was petrified of Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins heading into this one. Didn't really see a lot from either one of those guys in this game. And heading into what is today's game with the Browns and Chiefs, I mean, out of those two teams, without looking ahead too much, but I got to get your take on this. If you could pick between the Browns or the Chiefs, which team would you want the Buffalo Bills to face next in the AFC title game?
Are you asking me who do I think they can beat, or who do I think would be the most fun? Because those are two different answers.
You could answer technically both of those questions if you want. Yeah, feel free.
I think that the Bills may have played the two best defenses in the playoffs so far, and not that the Browns' defense isn't good, but I think Josh Allen and company can score on the Browns and score effectively. I think they can score on the Chiefs too, but I think the Browns are a team they probably have a better chance to beat. You get the Baker Mayfield, get him flustered, get him playing kind of like the crazy Baker that we've seen in the past. And that's a much better opportunity, especially with the way the Bills defense played on Saturday, to get that win. I want to see the Chiefs. I want to see Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes play in the playoffs the next 12 years. That's the matchup I want to see. I want to see what this newfound success from the Bills defense can do against Hill and against Kelsey. And we'll see where Edwards-Helaire might be. He's not going to play against the Browns, are the reports that are out right now. But that's the matchup I want to see. We all love quarterbacks. So not that Baker isn't good, but if you're making your tiers right now, it's probably Mahomes and Rodgers might be like your pencil him into the Hall of Fame. It's on two guys. But if there's a gap down to Josh Allen, it's not big. So right. He's in that top. If you're playing Madden and you're doing a complete new, dynasty and you're repicking everybody, Allen's going in all three of those guys are going in your top 5. Mahomes and Allen are going in your top 5. And I like offense, so let's do that. We all want to pound the over,
Right. Let's pound the over with this offense. I was pounding the over with Josh Allen. I think going into the game he was over 286, which I don't know. He didn't hit that, right? I don't
No.
know what the final stat line. Yeah, I know he didn't hit 286, but you win some, you lose some, Greg. You know how it goes. So as you mentioned, the Bills defense, we talked about it, we touched on it, but one particular play, the Teron Johnson 101-yard pick six, there's actually some discussion on Twitter that it was 102 yards. I'm not going to complain, Greg. I'm not complaining at all. They could call it 101, 102. Hey, it was a pick six. Where does this play rank, though, in Bills franchise history, especially recent franchise history? This is like this should be encapsulated, frozen in time, right?
If you're going to go post the 4 straight Super Bowl appearances, Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Bruce Smith, Andre Reed teams, this is the biggest play. I mean, hands down. It was 10-3 Ravens driving, looking to tie, steal momentum, whether you believe in Uncle Mo or not. And all of a sudden, it completely swung the other way. I mean, I was joking on Twitter with some people that the defense is going to create a turnover. Let's go, do it here. I was just hoping for a fumble or a pick or force another field goal. Here's Taron Johnson. All credit to Brandon Beane, who just keeps finding these dudes in the middle of the draft. Taron Johnson, a 4th-round pick, mostly made fun of as the guy that got hit in the head at the combine.
Yeah.
And now he's the hero of the Buffalo Bills playoffs, solidifying them going to the AFC Championship game. We'll have to check back with WCA and some other Buffalo hospitals and see if there's a bunch of Terrans out there 9 months from now.
I mean, that was the play that my initial reaction, just to give you an unscripted, initial unfiltered reaction, I was like, no, don't go, don't run. Because when he was running out of the end zone, I'm like, what are you doing? And then, 10 yards turned to 20 turned to 30. And then I was just like, go. And it was, man, my neighbors were probably pretty ticked off at me last night. They're not Bills fans. They're not football fans, which is, I don't know. How can you live in Western New York and not be a Bills fan? After this season, I just don't get it.
How can you live and not be a sports fan?
That's a great point, too. So, yeah, I think I'm right there with you. Post those Super Bowl years, I know Eric Moulds made a lot of big plays for this team, especially against the Miami Dolphins, squishing the fish a time or two. There's a lot of awesome catches that he made in those rivalry games. But in terms of a play that really stands out that led this team to victory in this game, that Teron Johnson pick six, that was a play that I'll remember probably for the rest of my life. That was one of those plays.
Well, it's time and place. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like some of Eric Moulds, arguably the best receiver the Bills have had post Andre Reed, but the games weren't significant.
Mm-hmm.
This was going to the AFC Championship game.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. Taron Johnson can never play another down for the Bills again. And the dude should never walk into a bar in Buffalo and have to buy chicken wings, beef on weck, or a beer. Right. Like, they should just, whatever your local establishment is that you enjoy, when we're allowed back out there, whatever establishment it is you enjoy, Taron Johnson should be able to walk in and there's just, here's a dozen wings and here's for me, a Scotch, but whatever he enjoys drinking.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're not much of a Labatt Blue drinker. You're more of a Scotch drinker. What is your Scotch of choice for the folks at home so that way they can have some of what you're having?
I wish I knew how to flip my screen so you guys could see what's behind me. But so behind me on the wall over there is a Michael Jordan Rare Air poster that I wanted since I was a kid. I grew up really poor, but wanted this photo. When my mom finally got, not her life, my dad's life was messed up. My mom got everything figured out. She got this poster for me and it's framed behind me. But there's Glenlivet, there's McClellan, there's some Glenfiddich behind me, there's some Belvini behind me. I'm an equal opportunity Scotch guy. But Glenlivet, if you're going dollars to donuts here, like what's the best bang for your buck? The Glenlivet 12 or 15 is usually where I'm going.
So are you you're a Scotch drinker? Are you much of a whiskey drinker?
Love it.
Love it. Okay. So the question is, have you actually indulged in some proper 12 Irish whiskey?
Once. And it was only once. And it's not that I didn't like it. It's going back to that value.
Right.
I do all right financially, but I can't just buy whatever I want. So, for the price, there are things that I enjoy more. If I won the lottery tomorrow, which I've never played the lottery, but if I somehow won, I have a couple bottles of Jack Daniel's Frank Sinatra Select, which
Wow.
are that to me, that's
Frank Sinatra Select. That's the
yes,
classy stuff.
that's fantastic. My best friend Vinny Semino. I have two children, as we talked about. Both
Yep.
times they were born. That was my congratulations on becoming a dad present.
That's amazing. The Frank Sinatra Select. That's fantastic. So as we touched on, you touched on it, and I saw this news just before we hit the record button here that Leslie Frazier is interviewing with the Houston Texans, and obviously Brian Dable, for reasons that we all know, he has led a just amazing offense this entire season. And I think, for my money, he's the hottest head coaching candidate in the NFL right now. Brian Dable could be leaving, as well as Leslie Frazier. Do you worry for the Bills' future beyond this season, no matter the result that this season provides, the end result that this season will provide us? Are you worried for the Bills' future without Dable and Frazier? I don't think it's a topic that many people are discussing quite right now.
I don't know if worried is the right
Mhm.
word. Is it a bummer that they lose
Mhm.
those guys? Sure. But guess what happens to really good teams in any sport? You lose your assistants. If I'm
Right.
telling you that over the next 5 years you lose 4 or 5 coordinators, guess what that means? That means you're winning. So
Yep.
that's a good problem to have. I like what Dable has done. Obviously, we've seen massive growth with Josh Allen, but that can also be given to Jordan Palmer, his QB coach. And one thing that isn't discussed enough, in my opinion, about Josh Allen is his willingness to go, I'm not good at X, Y, and Z, so I'm going to spend all summer getting better at X, Y, and Z. I'm not making this GOAT comparison, but it's kind of like LeBron James. Every summer he comes back and adds something to his tool belt, and it makes him the second best player ever. I'm a Michael Jordan stan. Sorry, younger audience. I know you're LeBron guys. But that's what you have to do. And Allen recognized, I'm not good at deep ball accuracy. Let's work on that. I have a weird kind of hitch in my throwing motion. Let's work on that. My feet aren't always balanced underneath me. Let's work on that. And he's massively improved all of those. The problem with that Josh Allen has set up for everybody is every team that drafts a quarterback from here on out thinks, oh, well, we can just fix him like Josh Allen got fixed. And it's not that easy. Let me get a sip of Monster, sorry.
Oh, sure, yeah. You gotta have that energy after that after that celebration last night.
I wake up to an energy drink and I fall asleep to a glass of scotch. But back to your question, I'm not worried necessarily because I trust two people, Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane. I trust them to do the right things. I trust them to make the right hires. You stick to Buffalo Sports. I don't trust the other organization owned by the Pagulas to make those proper hires. I trust Beane and McDermott to make the right hires, whether that's promoting Ken Dorsey, the QB coach, or what it might be that they would do to replace Dable if he left for the Chargers, which I think would be a home run hire for Los Angeles and would be a great fit there. I trust those guys, and that's the biggest thing. I'll use the company line. I trust the process, and in this case, it would be the hiring process. Also, the Bills' OC job with Josh Allen, with Stephon Diggs, with that line, with what they have, is going to be the fire emoji OC job out there right now. They will get to pick whomever they want to replace Dable. So it's not like you're, Urban Meyer trying to find an OC and going, no, really, Lawrence is going to be awesome. Come be my offensive coordinator. You have a top 3 quarterback in the league. You have the best receiver in the league.
I would say so. I will take that take for sure.
And you
endorse
have
it.
McDermott, who has shown to be willing to go, here's your offense. Go do the offense. Those are 3 massive selling points that most teams don't have. You can coach these guys, or you can go coach a mad Deshaun Watson and no receivers, or a running back, or an offensive line and no draft. That's the big thing.
Yeah, I love how you broke that down, especially given the results that, I mean, the proof is in the pudding with Bean and McDermott.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they took on a team that was in salary cap hell.
Right.
Doug Whaley could call it quarterback purgatory. You could call it whatever you want. But the team was headed in the wrong direction. And they hired this defensive coordinator from the Carolina Panthers that was in the Andy Reid coaching tree. And I thought, this guy has some what we call coaching integrity. He's got some results that he's shown over the course of each stop in his career. But I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, how could I be fully convinced when all I know as a Bills fan, as a 28-year-old or 4-year-old at that time, was just mixed results? And then I watched that first press conference with Sean McDermott, and I say to myself, this guy might be the guy. He might be the guy to lead this team to the promised land. And now 4 years later, 4 years is a short time for this quick of a turnaround to be viewed in the eyes of many as a Super Bowl contender. We're one game away. And I mean, Brandon Beane as well. What is the one move to you that really stands out from Brandon Beane's time as the general manager? I think I have some answers to it, but I want your take on that.
It wasn't a move. It was a day. It was the
Mm-hmm.
day I'm driving into work, and I've never pulled over to have to stop and gather my thoughts before I had a reaction. And it was when they traded Sammy, and then they traded
Ronald Darby.
Darby, yes.
Yep.
And it was almost a chain of text from the Bills that these moves were happening. And that's when it was like, okay, this isn't Whaley's team anymore.
Mm-hmm.
This is a new Bills team. And at the time, it was kind of like, how can you do this? What are you thinking? You can't get rid of these pieces. But what it did was it blew up the house. It completely demolished everything. They didn't go down to the foundation. They dug that concrete out and said, here's a whole new plot of land.
Right.
And we're starting over. And it gave them the ammunition to then do what they did, packaging their pick, plus the Cordy Glenn, the Bengals pick, getting up to 12, then trading 12 to get up to 7 and get Josh Allen. Also using some of those second-round picks to move up to 16 and get Tremaine Edmonds. All of a sudden, you have the pillar of your offense, trading back also. Now, this was McDermott was kind of in charge, but trading back for White. But that one day put all this ammunition in the holster and the guns of McBean to do this, and now you have Allen, who's your dude for the next, hopefully, 15 years.
Yeah.
Sign him early. Now you have Edmonds. Edmonds is 22. I fight with so many people that overreact on when he makes one or two mistakes a game. He's 22 years old. He's in his third season. Dude's a baby.
I know.
A grown
unreal.
Man baby, but a baby.
Yeah.
And
that's a rookie season for most 22.
He's younger than Joe Burrow.
That's unbelievable. I didn't even know. Yeah, that the way you put that, like, you don't even realize that until you hear it. You're like, wow, that really does put it in perspective. Yeah, and I agree with you as far as the one day that really encapsulates, wow, something's changing here. Sammy Watkins gets traded. Ronald Darby gets traded. I listened to an interview. Eric Wood was on the Rich Eisen show, and the exact quote, I just listened to it recently. He said, I get the text, I get the notification on my phone. I'm going from practice to home, and I hear that we had traded Sammy and Ronald Darby, and I thought, what are we doing here? But then the following, walkthroughs, practices, he thought, I think I know what this guy's thinking. I understand what this guy, Sean McDermott, is trying to do. So it seems like these players just really love Sean McDermott as well. Like, he just gets the players to buy into him completely. You see it in those locker room celebrations. Sean McDermott isn't really a rah-rah guy like Marv Levy was. He's more of a calculated, kind of poised coach. But after they beat the Indianapolis Colts, he dropped the F-bomb, and the whole locker room erupted. I don't think I've ever heard Sean McDermott swear, let alone in a celebratory moment. He's kind of making sure that these guys, stay calm, cool, and collected, stay focused. What is it about Sean McDermott to you from the outside looking in that just makes him so special to these players?
I can think of two, like there's two videos playing in my head right now. One was, you mentioned his introductory presser. When he got done, he took the time and went around to all the media members, which we're just faces in the crowd to him, which he now has everyone's name memorized. But he stopped and shook everyone's hand, introduced himself like we didn't know who the dude that just got hired as the Bills head coach was. and took a second to chat. And that's something, that shows you what kind of a people person he is beyond putting on the Bills ball cap and standing at the podium and giving us a lecture on him being the new coach. So that's that. It shows you that he wants to build relationships, even with the sports dude sitting in his basement right now. Beyond that, and I've been to, when I worked in Erie, I went to the Browns and Steelers practices, and I've been to Bills practices. But he is involved in everything. And some people might say, well, then you're spreading yourself thin. But it's the way he's involved. You see maybe Trey White break, improperly in a coverage in practice, and he stops it and goes over and chats to him about that. You see Edmonds doing something that a 21, 22-year-old might screw up, and he stops and talks to him about that. He's on the offensive side, joking with the offensive guys. This is a guy that truly shows every player 1 to 53 or at camp 1 to 90 that I'm here for you and I love you. And I have a feeling that when they cut guys or they have to release guys or waive guys or whatever, he's the one going, hey, here's my cell phone number. You need a reference. I don't care if you're going to be an insurance adjuster or you're trying to play for the Bengals. I got you. That's the kind of dude he is. And that's who you want to play for. We've all had bosses we didn't necessarily like out there, and we've all had bosses we've absolutely loved. He's definitely in the latter category.
I love that breakdown because I've seen bits and pieces of that in training camp. He's talking to just average people, fans, moms, dads. He gets it. To put it lightly, he gets the whole process of what it means to be the Buffalo Bills head coach. And I went to an event at the Eastern Hills Mall at the Buffalo store. He did a signing. I got to meet him for a little bit, and he is a very, very nice guy, but he does have that coach intimidation factor, being that he was an accomplished wrestler. It's like, yeah, you know that this guy's got a little bit of an edge to him, and I respect that as well. So I love that breakdown, Greg. That was awesome. Moving forward from the Bills, I wanted to get your take on the big fight this weekend. I know that you're a big mixed martial arts fan. Yesterday there was a lot of great fights, some weird fights, but Max Holloway had a really impressive performance. Did you happen to catch that prior to this game?
Unfortunately, I did not. My wife was working a long day on Saturday, so I was double duty with the kids trying to play some zone defense against them. I did not get to see, but I'm a Max Holloway fan. Anyone, as long as you're not just a kind of a jerk, I root for the Americans first. Like that's just how I roll. And that's I don't know if you've seen Den of Thieves, but he's in that. He's in that. And I think I just like him. Like he just seems like a dude I would like. He seems like a guy that you would want for him being from Hawaii, sit on the beach, crack a Corona and chill and talk to. He just seems like one of those dudes. So I'm glad that I saw that he won and he broke the record for most significant strikes ever in a fight.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it ever. And I've been watching MMA and boxing since I was a little kid. I've never seen a performance like that. It was amazing. I suggest you check it out. But although you missed that fight, I know for a fact that you're probably not going to miss what takes place next Saturday. Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier 2, the rematch that's 6 years, almost 7 years in the making. I want the Greg Vorse pick. Who do you see winning that fight and why on Saturday night?
I will steal a line from one of my favorite high school football coaches in Western New York, Ty Harper. Shout out Sherman Clymer, Panama Wolfpack, 2-time defending state champs in Class D. Hungry dogs fight harder. Hungry dogs go after it harder. Poirier is the hungry dog coming into this fight. McGregor has it all, literally.
Right,
dude could buy me if he wanted to. Like he's got it all. Poirier still wants to get that. He's not starving by any means, but I feel like he's won 10 fights. It's been 2014, I believe, was when they fought last. Because I see a lot of people pointing to Conor already beat him. I don't know how much you've changed in the last 6 years. I became a dad twice.
Yeah,
I got a new puppy because I unfortunately had to put my best buddy down.
Man,
life changes so much in 6 years, and it's not like Poirier lost to that and went to the bottom of the ranks and beat up you and me.
Right.
Like he's beating up some of the who's who in in fighting to get back to this point. So I just feel like, it's going to be his time. He's going to go out there, and I'm not putting a ton on the Cerrone win. I mean, I don't know. I love Cowboy. I remember Cowboy. You talk about being an MMA fan for a while. I remember when Cowboy was discovered on the Tap Out show.
Yes, I did too. On Versus.
Yes, on Versus. Yeah.
Yep.
So I've been a Cowboy fan since before, there was a Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Mm-hmm. But I think he's, don't come beat me up if you happen to see this, but I think he's washed. His days are kind of dumb. He has kids. He's enjoying life. Good for him. But right. I don't know what to put into that. I mean, foot stomps and elbows is
right, and shoulder strikes to the nose.
That's what I meant.
Yeah,
so, that I don't know what to put in that win, but I'm going to go with Poirier.
I like it.
It's going to be fun, and if McGregor wins, we'll hear some quotes that will have us laughing, so I won't be upset. But I'll go with I'll go with the local boy. Well, local as in America.
The USA-born fighter. Yeah, I like it. And Mike Tyson said it best. It's tough to wake up and get punched in the face when you sleep in silk sheets. And Conor's been sleeping in silk sheets for a long time now. I mean, his life is completely changed from what it was when they first fought. And as you mentioned, Dustin Poirier, the last 6 years, he's beaten the who's who. He got up to that interim title level. You don't get to that level without, being a high caliber fighter himself. And I think a lot of people are just saying that McGregor is going to win just because McGregor beat him the first time. I think this is a much closer fight than what most think. I do see McGregor winning it, but I think that this is going to take some time off of Conor McGregor's career. I think this is going to be a bloody battle between Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. But I do see maybe Conor getting the decision, maybe 48-47 in a close fight. And I think that it's going to be, what the UFC has been able to do during this pandemic, Greg, how remarkable is that to you, seeing the UFC kind of just go on business as usual, despite the unusual times we're living in?
Dana White, going back to when he talked his friends, the Fertitta brothers, into buying the UFC and then turning it into a $4 billion entity, they gave him just the blank slate. We talked about tearing it down to nothing and starting over with McBean. What they did and the Fertitta brothers did, going to Dana and being like, this is yours. No commissioner, no president, no CEO in the world in sports has the power that Dana White has to just do it. And he has this, while I know most Buffalo sports fans don't like Boston, he has that Boston F you, I don't care attitude. Yeah. And that's what he's done. And that's what he did with Fight Island out in Abu Dhabi was, okay, how can we have fights? Well, we got to find somewhere that we can get away from everyone. Oh, we're worth billions. I'm going to buy a damn island.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Tony Montana stuff.
Right. And then bring the guys over. You have to pass tests for a couple weeks. You're on this island. So if you test positive, get out. And if you're negative all those times, you fight. And he went, this should work. Why can't this work? And it's worked. So I give him so much credit for stepping back and saying, we need sports. How can I make it happen? And that's what he did. You also have it where obviously there's no fans. And really, when you get into the core of the fighting, it's the fighter and three corner men or women. So you're really only kind of worrying about 4 people in this little bubble, if you will. Once you leave your camp, once you're away from your sparring partners and your gym and you're actually on Fight Island, it's a handful of people you have to worry about. It's not a 53-man roster. It's not the NHL with their 23 and a taxi squad and going all this. So credit to Dana for just having an idea and having the gumption, we'll say, right, keep it PG-13 to make it happen.
Yeah, I agree. There is no there of all the commissioners or presidents, I think Dana White's the best. I really do. Look at what the UFC has done the last 15, 20 years. They were looked at as a black eye on sports, pun intended, and now they're on ESPN Plus. I mean, they're doing amazing things against this COVID-19 pandemic, and this has been such a weird year. To your point, we do need sports. I don't know what I would do without this Buffalo Bills season this year. Had football not happened, there was some discussions of, the NFL maybe putting a pause on the season and figuring things out, but the NFL kind of charged ahead. I'm so thankful that they did, Greg, given the Bills season and just given that we need sports. Guys like us, we need sports in our lives in order to keep us at bay from the daily rigmarole of what's going on in the world right now. Could you imagine everything going on in the world right now without sports, how depressing things would be?
It's even further than that. This is the discussion I've had off the record with some high-ranking people in college athletics, in pro athletics. It's us. It's in our blood. And you even go deeper than that. This summer, I have a 5-year-old daughter. Her getting to have T-ball, and they did it. Everyone had to wear a mask. You had to sanitize everything pre and post practice. We broke it up so it was only groups of a couple kids with each parent. But even her having that to look forward to every Wednesday was enormous, because that poor kid had a Disney trip taken away from her, had Christmas and 4th of July, like all that. And we've all been there. We've all had that ripped away from us. Right. So even more than you and I, who thrive off of this, some of us make an income off of sports. It's even deeper than that. It's the mental aspect of it. It's Jarrett Patterson getting to have this season and go out there and be dominant for UB, and now he's going to be playing on Sundays next season. It's those guys, and talking to someone like Jarrett off camera and hearing his passion. Same with his twin brother James, Coyote Awashika, sticking with the UB premise, and Dominic Johnson, who was the other guy with Jarrett that Coach Leipold nominated to kind of be the speakers for UB when it came to talking to the MAC, and just seeing it in their faces what this means to them. I'm passionate about it. You're passionate about it. Imagine those dudes.
Right. The guys that are actually battling in the weight room and trying to make it in between the white chalk. Yeah.
And it's the mental. It's so mental, having that to look forward to, knowing that when we're done here, I'm going to watch some more playoff games while my 1-year-old beats me up, because that's what he does, because he's a bruiser. I don't know how a 5'10" male built this little guy that I have, but he's going to play left tackle for the Bills someday. But knowing that that's coming up, it's fantastic.
That's awesome. I love that breakdown. It kind of shows what everyone, in a way, as you mentioned, stuff with your daughter, that's tough stuff. And everyone has been through that to their own degree. Hopefully we do get back to some normalcy here sooner, much sooner rather than later. But in the meantime, as well as just sports in general keeping me at bay, something that kept me at bay and grabbed my attention was when you invited me into this auction fantasy league. I was so close, Greg, yet so far. Made it to the finals and lost. Break down how you prefer auction fantasy. It seems like you prefer auction fantasy more than just regular fantasy football. I'm fascinated by this.
What's nice about auction is there's no luck of the draft draw. There's none of that. If you are a Bills fan and you want Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs on your roster, and you're willing to pay, the most leagues, it's $200 you start with to bid, and then you have to fill out your roster of 15 positions with that bid money. So if you're willing to bid $80 on Josh Allen, which is way more than you ever would have to pay, he's yours. If you want Christian McCaffrey, and you went into this season, you had the second pick, you had no chance to get Christian McCaffrey. None.
Right.
He was going first.
Right.
If you had the third pick and you wanted McCaffrey or Barkley, you didn't have a chance. You want to spend $80 on each one of them and fill out the rest of your roster with me and 3 salesmen? Do it. That's what's so great about auction is that's how it works. Now you have to pencil out a little more time to do the draft, because when you get down to the end and you're firing away for $1 and $2 guys, it's fun. The other thing is sniping people, knowing who someone might want. If you and I are in a league together, I know you're a Bills fan.
Right.
And I may have already spent $20 on Patrick Mahomes. But Allen's sitting there and he's only at 7. I'm pushing 8, so you have to spend 9. And I'm probably going to push 10, so you have to spend 11. And at some point, you might drop them on me. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting there with, spending $40 on 2 quarterbacks, and I look like an idiot.
Mm-hmm. But, yeah, you did that a couple times.
Oh, I do it all the time.
You put Mahomes in there. I know that, and I ended up bidding for Mahomes. It started out at like 15. I got him for like 24. I got to tell you, it was very entertaining for me playing in that league, and I'm definitely coming back. I gotta make that right. I won I think it was 125 I got, which I was happy about that. But I'm a competitor, Greg. I gotta go big or go home.
It was the first time I ever tried a 0 RB draft. Never again. I learned my lesson. Because I think I ended up like 500 in that league. I don't think I made the playoffs because we only do 6 spots out of 12 teams. And
right.
it was not the best showing for Greg Vorse, who's pretty good at fantasy football.
Yeah, the first half of the season got off to a decent start for you, and then it kind of trickled down. But
Josh Jacobs, my guys all got hurt. If
right.
a running back got hurt, he was on my roster in that league.
That's the worst, especially when you're playing with money and your running backs just go down, week after week. That happened to me in another money league, which with Josh Jacobs. So I feel your pain there. So I'm very excited for this upcoming game. If you're picking between the Browns and Chiefs, just to pick a winner, we kind of talked about who would you prefer, Browns or Chiefs, but who do you actually think will win the Chiefs and Browns game? Just flat out, just your regular winner pick.
I tweeted a little bit before we started this that I think the Chiefs are going to boat race the Browns, which means expect Cleveland to win. Because I just an extra week to prepare, Patrick Mahomes getting right, Hill getting right, Kelsey getting right. Sorry, Bills Mafia, if you were making me bet an amount of money that mattered in my life, I'm still picking the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I still think they're the best team.
Right.
But I also said, give me Packers or Bills Chiefs, and I am so set for this Super Bowl with any of those 2 combos. Packers, Bills, Packers, Chiefs, we are good to go. But in my heart of hearts, I just see the Chiefs offense. They're just, once they find it again, they've struggled a little bit. And it's funny to say they struggled a little bit and they're still scoring 30 points.
Yeah, that's crazy. People are like, oh yeah, they struggled, but it's like, yeah, by their standards,
right,
not by everybody else's standards. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that in my head, I see the Chiefs winning, but man, I would love it if the Browns won, just for the simple fact that the Bills would play host to the Browns in an AFC Championship game. If there's any fan base that deserves that opportunity to go to Bills Stadium in Orchard Park to witness that, it's obviously Bills Mafia and our fans. So I'm very, very anxious for this game, just as anxious for this one now that the Bills won against the Ravens than I was last night. But Greg, thank you so much for joining me, buddy. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for hopping on. Keep up the great work. I am coming back to that auction league. I gotta finish what I started.
I appreciate it. Hey, hopefully everyone enjoyed their time here in the Vorse Lounge.
The Vorse Lounge is looking pretty good, and like I said from the top of the show, the UFC 210 lanyard, hopefully sooner rather than later. Once we get through these weird times, I'm praying that the UFC comes back to Buffalo. We need it, I think.
It was a fantastic event. I think that they enjoyed it as well. So there's no reason not to come back now that legislation says they can.
Right. I completely agree. Well, Greg, thank you so much for joining me, buddy, and take care. Stay safe. Blessings to you and your family, and keep those little ones at bay, as tough as it may be.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care. That was Greg Vorse, sports reporter. I was so happy to have Greg on the show today. A lot to discuss after that Bills victory, the Buffalo Bills beating the Baltimore Ravens 17-3. We got past the Ravens, and now we're looking forward to this Chiefs versus Browns game. Greg's got the Chiefs. I have the Chiefs as well, but I'm cautiously optimistic, hoping that the Browns do win, just so that the Bills can play host to an AFC title game. That'd be pretty amazing. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Stay safe and take care.